welcome to the Spirit Soul Series podcast, and we are back with another episode with Supriya Chechi, and we're gonna continue uh, with the 10th chapter, and we're gonna be doing the ninth verse right now.
Okay.
And I'll Hare Krishna Supriya Chechi, and
Hare
I'll just
Krishna. Nice to be here.
thank you. And I'll just do the incantation
Yeah,
so that
yeah.
we can start off. So, Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha श्रीचैतन्यो मनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपा कदा मायं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं हे कृष्णा करुणा सिन्धु दीनबन्धु जगत्पते गोपेशा गोपिकान्ता राधाकान्ता नमोऽस्तुते तप्त कंचन गौरंगी राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वञ्चाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः नमो ओं विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमती भक्तिवेदांत स्वामी इति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवी गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे श्रीकृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंदा श्री अद्वैता गदाधर श्रीवसादि गौरभक्तवृंदा हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा जय श्री प्रभुपाद
Hare Krishna and Jai Srila Prabhupada. We are doing verse 9 of chapter 10. Right. So here we are. This is very much into the Chatur Shloki. I think we've been stuck on the Chatur Shloki for some
Yeah,
time.
Shazam.
Yeah, never mind. This is a lovely verse and it links up, as we will discuss, with the second verse of chapter 9.
Hmm.
You remember this Raja Vidya, Raja Guhyam, that
Yeah,
verse. Okay,
yeah,
Pavitram Idam Uttamam, that one. But we will explain how that's the case after looking at this verse for a while. So shall we chant this together?
yeah.
Mat
Machit,
Matita
machita, madgata prana, bodhayantaः परस्परं कथयन्तश्च मम नित्यं तुष्यन्ति च रमन्ति च
again.
मच्चिता मद्गता
Matgata
प्राणा बोधयन्तः परस्परं कथयन्तश्च मम नित्यं तुष्यन्ति च रमन्ति च
once more.
मच्चिता मद्गता प्राणा बोधयन्तः परस्परं कथयन्तश्च मम नित्यं तुष्यन्ति च रमन्ति च
Okay. Just let's go for the word for word. There we've not
yeah
been doing that so far
yeah
because that way the verse starts to open up. Yeah. Machita, their minds fully engaged in me. Chitta means mind or consciousness.
mm,
Mat gata prana, their lives devoted to me. Mat is to me, that is to Krishna. Bodhayanta, speaking, talking, preaching, basically about him amongst themselves. Parasparam, among themselves. Kathayanta, talking, telling katha or Krishna Lila, Krishna Katha. Cha, also, mam, about me, nityam, always, perpetually. Tushyanti is to become pleased. Tushti basically means nourishment and pleasure. Tushyanti. Cha, also. Ramanti, enjoy transcendental bliss. Cha, also again. Please read the translation.
yeah. The thoughts of my pure devotees dwell in me. Their lives are fully devoted to my service, and they derive great satisfaction and bliss from always enlightening one another and conversing about me.
Okay, so the thoughts of my pure devotees dwell in me. They're always thinking of the Lord. Their lives are fully devoted to my service, and they derive great satisfaction and bliss from always enlightening one another and conversing about me. Right. Purport, please read.
Yeah. Pure devotees, whose characteristics are mentioned here, engage themselves fully in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. Their minds cannot be diverted from the lotus feet of Krishna. Their talks are solely on the transcendental subjects. The symptoms of the pure devotees are described in this verse specifically. Devotees of the Supreme Lord are 24 hours daily engaged in glorifying the qualities and pastimes of the Supreme Lord. Their hearts and souls are constantly submerged in Krishna, and they take pleasure in discussing him with other devotees. In
Okay, go on. in the preliminary stage of devotional service?
In the preliminary stage of devotional service, they relish the transcendental pleasure from the service itself. And in the mature stage, they are actually situated in love of God. Once situated in that transcendental position, they can relish the highest perfection which is exhibited by the Lord in his abode. Lord Chaitanya likens transcendental devotional service to the sowing of a seed in the heart of the living entity. There are innumerable living entities traveling throughout the different planets of the universe, and out of them, there are a few who are fortunate enough to meet a pure devotee and get the chance to understand devotional service. This devotional service is just like a seed, and if it is sown in the heart of a living entity, and if he goes on hearing and chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, that seed fructifies just as the seed of a tree fructifies with regular watering. The spiritual plant of devotional service gradually grows and grows until it penetrates the covering of the material universe and enters into the Brahma Jyotir effulgence in the spiritual sky. In the spiritual sky also the plant grows more and more until it reaches the highest planet, which is called Golok Vrindavan, the supreme planet of Krishna. Ultimately, the plant takes shelter under the lotus feet of Krishna and rests there. Gradually, as a plant grows fruits and flowers, that plant of devotional service also produces fruits, and the watering process in the form of chanting and hearing goes on. This plant of devotional service is fully described in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Leela, chapter 19. It is explained there that when the complete plant takes shelter under the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord, one becomes fully absorbed in love of God. Then he cannot live even for a moment without being in contact with the Supreme Lord. Just as a fish cannot live without water. In such a state, the devotee actually attains the transcendental qualities in contact with the Supreme Lord. Srimad Bhagavatam is also full of such narrations about the relationship between the Supreme Lord and his devotees. Therefore, the Srimad Bhagavatam is very dear to the devotees, as stated in the Bhagavatam itself, Canto 12, Chapter 13, Text 18. Srimad Bhagavatam Puranam Amalam Yad Vaishnavanam Priyam. In this narration, there is nothing about material activities, economic development, sense gratification, or liberation. Srimad Bhagavatam is the only narration in which the transcendental nature of the Supreme Lord and his devotees is fully described. Thus, the realized souls in Krishna consciousness take continual pleasure in hearing such transcendental literatures, just as a young boy and girl take pleasure in association.
Okay, so it's ending, stressing the main point in this verse, which is the pleasure element. You know, Ramantite,
Hmm.
Bodhayanta Parasparam in the verse, okay, they are discussing. But why are they going on discussing? Because they get so much satisfaction and bliss and pleasure from it. So the pleasure principle is stressed again right at the end. And the commentator, that is in this case, Srila Prabhupada, is coming down to the level of the materialist to help him or her understand by giving an example that we can all relate to. That just as a young boy and girl take pleasure in associating with each other, but that's a material kind of lust and attraction.
Hmm.
Similarly, devotees get so much pleasure from at one level. Once they come to one level, the pure devotees, they get so much pleasure from discussing different aspects of the Lord and his pastimes and everything connected with the Lord, that it just keeps them going. So this was straight away going back to the beginning of the purport, where it's talking about devotees talking and being feeling so blissful.
Hmm.
If you think of the second verse in chapter 9, it's actually a famous verse. We've covered it. This
Hmm.
Raja Vidya Raja Guhyam Pavitram Idam
Okay.
Uttamam. This is a description of devotional service, that it's the highest knowledge, it's the most confidential, it's pure and makes one pure, etc.
Hmm.
The next verse, which is
Oh.
Pratyakshavagamam Dharmyam, that is, you have to experience it, only then you become
Hmm.
convenienced. You have to experience how the Lord reciprocates on how changes happen. But the last bit of that verse, which is
Susukam
Pratyakshavagamam Dharmyam, Susukham Kartum
Kartum
Avyayam,
Avyayam.
it's joyfully performed. This is
Hmm.
crucial. It's joyfully performed. That at one level, when the impurities fade away and we kind of get the hang of things, at
Hmm.
least in flashes, we get insight that just by doing it, we just become so joyful. And I can give you a vivid example that I witnessed even recently while watching one of the late Kadamba Kanana Swami's kirtans.
Yeah,
This
I'm seeing
kirtan
that. Like,
was, yeah, not, I don't mean the one, the sannyas ceremony, but even before that,
the
like I think it
okay.
happened in 2019 or something, the Mayapur Kirtan. What I'm going on to say is, Of course, he had this tendency, he was expert kirtanier of building up the momento. So the momentum. So that was getting built up. And then different groups, I saw a group of ladies and then the group of the Bengali boys, etc., were doing different kind of dance arrangements. You know, they put their hands on the next person's shoulder like a chain and go round and round. Then they had someone in the center whose feet were on the ground, his hands were stretched out, and someone was holding him and spinning him. So they were just improvising. And then suddenly I saw a sight which really made me sit up. There's a very tragic case in Mayapur. It's quite well known because often devotees fund them. He's a paralyzed boy. His name is Chaitanya, Western boy. His parents are quite prominent, Prabhupada disciples. His father runs a publishing company called Torchlight Publishing. I have ordered a couple of books from them. Alistair Taylor is the legal name, and otherwise he's got a Diksha name, his mother, and then he has a sister who was a Bhakti Shastri student when I taught. So this boy, Chaitanya, he's a grown Hulk. I mean, meaning he must be in his mid or more 30s. But I'm talking of like a time when he was 16, 17, he was being brought up. I'm not sure about the exact facts. I understood that he went abroad back to America where they come from. Unfortunately, he got mixed up with his old pals. They put him back on drugs. He succumbed. He came back after his holidays. He was fully on drugs. When he didn't get it, he kind of went off and he jumped from, I was there at that time, around 9 o'clock in the morning, from the 4th floor of a temple guest house, just above the temple. He just took a leap. We don't know if it was delusional and he didn't realize what he was doing or whether he was trying to end his life. So he survived, but a lot of paralysis happened. And subsequently, you'd see him in a wheelchair, getting pushed by a caretaker, a caregiver, trying to sell books and trying to smile weekly, whatever he can do with his face and mouth. And then subsequently, he's gone through a lot of stages in the sense he has severe delusions. He's tried to end his life 3 times after that. Then he went through a stage where the parents just couldn't cope because he was prone to so much violence. He was put away. The authorities the state government came and took him away. Now he's back. So it's a very tragic case. We don't know what karma the parents are kind of finishing off. But in this kirtan, suddenly I saw, like spontaneously, this kirtaneering locals just lifted him off from that wheelchair. And he was like a body being carried on the top of the kirtan, the heads of all the people who were doing kirtan. Some people had his hands and some people were holding his back and his legs, and he was also laughing, and they were kind of literally throwing him around. So you have to really witness kirtan to see what spontaneous arrangements and dancing and whatnot. And for at least briefly, even this poor young man who is so badly trapped, and his whole family, as the parents write, have become dysfunctional because everything revolves only around the demands of this guy. So even he was able to transcend the misery that his karma or his foolish actions, whatever, had trapped in. So it's joyfully performed. That's very, very important. Therefore, you will see that ISKCON makes it a point to even give this to the blind school, to people who can't read. With Braille, they learn and then they hear. And then the more they hear, they feel this connection coming with the Supreme Lord, and they are able to overcome their. Yeah.
That's actually good that you brought this point, because I was seeing somebody like I think it was on Quora or something like that, where somebody
Yeah.
I think criticizing ISKCON and the whole this thing, because they were saying that the whole process is about chanting and hearing and all this, but like what about the people who are blind? What about them? People who are blind, deaf, or even dumb, like people who don't have any sense in one, like to say. But what about those people who don't have all that facility? How can they chant here and do all these things? So yeah, so it's like for them also, like you said,
Yeah.
there's something for them also. Okay.
ISKCON, ISKCON, like different people who are little more advanced, different devotees in their thinking and concern for others. They develop methods. I know that once the BTG, the Back to Godhead magazine, had an article about a lady who in the West was reaching out through Braille to people, and then it just kind of gets passed down. There is a prison ministry for ISKCON, which means that, you know, things are filtering down even in the prisons. People who have done terrible crimes and they are stuck, they have to serve their sentence, but they still something, they would still like to know why and where they come from and where they are heading. So deaf and dumb, yes, of course they are. Then if they are deaf, they can't really hear the kirtan, but still they can read and understand. Basically, all we are doing is that we are reconnecting the soul through knowledge and information and some practice to back to its source. So the minute when you meet someone new, never mind if he or she is not a Krishna person. Sometimes, you know, even I'm talking of a totally different material situation. People say, I felt an immediate connect with that person. So what's the reason? We get a lot of happiness and reassurance and pleasure at some deep level when we feel a connection. You know, parents who go to adopt a child, they tell me, we ask them, why did you select the particular baby? The baby couldn't talk. Just there were some 10 babies put out after all the formalities. And they will say something simple like, this particular baby, you know, when we were hovering around, she put out her hand and caught at my finger, and I felt an immediate connection. So like that, when this soul, no matter in which type of material body it's trapped in, blind, deaf, dumb, normal, whatever, feels that connection back with the source where they have originated, it gives a feeling of a very great satisfaction. So that is why this is a process that works. Now, having said that, the second half of this purport is giving an analogy that seems very fantastic. You know, it's describing of a plant that starts growing and then grows and grows and grows across planets, and it just kind of goes up to the spiritual world, and there it flowers little more. This analogy is actually taken straight from a verse which you might have come across in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. And I'm not too sure, but I think Lord Chaitanya, when he recited this verse, also he took it again probably from another text. It goes like this: Brahmanda Brahmite Kone Bhagyavan Jeev. That is, in some corner of the huge Brahmandam, there are these Bhagyavan Jeevs. You know, the very fortunate souls here and there. Never mind which corner, they're in Germany, they're in Eskimo land, or in our India, wherever. ब्रह्मांड भ्रमित कोणे, सम कोना में है भाग्यवान जीव, गुरु कृष्णा कृपा पाए भक्ति लता बीज. That is through the mercy and through the kindness of the guru, who goes out to try and do programs and give out literature and tell people. And gurus can be at different levels, can even be the average book distributor or just a friend who tells someone something which changes their life. The kripa of these, and Krishna, of course, they get the Bhakti Lata Beej. So this whole analogy is about the seed of devotion being planted in the heart of a devotee who is still then maybe lost, oblivious, happy in ignorance, not sure, not aware what Holocaust is coming around the corner. And then somewhere this Bhakti Lata Beej, or the beach of the devotional creeper, is planted in his heart. And then it grows and grows and grows through chanting and hearing and association, and it may grow across lifetimes. That's why they're talking about the creeper growing across planets. You know, it grows, and then finally grows up to. So it's just to give you an idea of that, it's a long process, but the starting point is the beach that has to be put. And it's why we try and avoid bad acts and bad deeds and try and purify ourselves, is because just like in a plant, in a flower pot, if there are weeds growing along with it, then they will eventually kill the devotional creeper. So it's our job to keep pulling out the weeds. Okay. And it's also said the guru's job is to basically till the soil and get it ready. The guru, he tills the soil, meaning he just, if it's very a dry land, before you plant the seed may fall to the mercy of Krishna and the Lord. But after that, they have to try and rake up the soil a little bit, so that when the water goes in and the seed is there, everything is it is nice. It is a nice situation for the growth of the creeper to start. And one thing that's stressed again and again is how offensive talk, criticism, unnecessary criticism of other Vaishnavas, they act as They actually destroy the Bhaktilata beach. It's considered like a mad elephant disease. Like a mad elephant comes in and that Bhaktilata beach that's there, it gets destroyed. On the other hand, recently there's a quote that's being shared. It is from Bhaktivinoda Thakur. That is the father of the guru of Srila Prabhupada. Bhaktivinoda Thakur has said, if some improper behavior is going on in a religious community, there is nothing wrong in discussing that, because it's naturally everybody is troubled and we want to know what punishment and why did it happen. So he says this, it is not adverse to devotional service. If something improper is happening in a religious community or even in the general public, something shocking has happened and we want to know why are these things happening, why is India going to ruins, you hear these stories, what's happened to the modern generation. What's all this crazy stuff about women getting chopped up and being put in freezers. Now it's kind of become like a copycat syndrome. Sometimes it's this about, it's not enough to murder, you have to chop up the body and then put it in a freezer. 3, 4, 5, 6, crazy. Then after that, it's not enough that you hit someone, hit and run, road rage. The body also has to drag along. Then there were so many copycat cases like that. So now and then it's not enough that one person urinated on someone else or did not. Now you have a whole lot of copycat other people also doing it. So why do these things? It's natural. People are disturbed and troubled. Things were not like this. We want to discuss. Similarly, in a religious community, if some improper behavior is taking place, he says it's not adverse to devotional service to want to discuss it. But we have to cut it to some stage and forget about the details and go for the principle of the thing and try and protect ourselves.
I have a slight doubt. I have a doubt in this.
Yeah.
Just a question. Like, if, obviously, like, one of the biggest sins that you could occur is like, to insult Vaishnavas. But is it okay if you can, like, I mean, is it, what does it say about, like, say, like, somebody else is following a different spiritual path?
Yeah, yeah,
Like, that is, like, a bit, um, say, like, like, the other day we were, I think maybe when it was in the
yeah,
FC, we
yeah.
were like talking about Sadhguru and all stuff,
Right,
right?
right. Yeah.
So is that okay, or is that not okay? Like
No,
to
I think that we
uh,
have a right to show some discrimination and really question these things. That
okay.
how come it is? I actually heard the personality you mentioned, meaning no offense,
Hmm.
recently saying that you can see, talking about Akashic intelligence. So I was just
Hmm.
curious. It was a 4 or 5 minute video. This is everything will go right in your life if you just do these three things. So naturally, this will attract a lot of viewers. Basically what he's talking about is that there is the akash and the sky and the sun there, and
Hmm.
of those all the elements, fire, earth, air, water, and fifth is space, the panchamahabhutas. He thinks space or sky is more important than the others. So he says the way you connect with the akashic intelligence is that morning, as the sun is rising, you bow down and give your pranam. This is like surya namaskar in yoga, but otherwise basically you remember it's a very good practice.
Hmm.
Then again at noon, when the sun is directly in the 90-degree position, you once again go out and pray. And evening, you do it again, maybe when the sun is about to set. And according to this particular speaker, I think we don't name him, this
Hmm.
preacher, everything then becomes right because you are perfectly situated, and your akashic intelligence is now connected with your intelligence
Hmm.
of something, and everything will go right in your life. Now, I mean, it's totally contrary to, then he goes on to say, no need to pray to any god up there.
Hmm.
Just do this to the blank space or the Akashic intelligence. I'm sure a lot of people will find this a very attractive option and may even feel they're getting results for some time. But everything in the Bhagavad Gita tells us, you know, everything that the three gunas, they are working all the time. His maya is mama maya duratyaya. That it's very hard to get over the working of the maya and the three gunas. It traps you and makes you feel very frustrated and battle and like pummeled all the time. Yeah, what is that verse? I'm not getting it. That it ends with mama maya duratyaya. That it's really very hard for a person to survive. Just check that famous verse.
Chapter 7, text 14.
Yeah, yeah. Just go to that. Yeah, Devi Yesha Gunamayi Mama Maya Duratya. Correct. Yeah. This divine energy of mind or this Mahamaya is Duratya, and the only way you can get past it is to specifically form a connection with me and surrender unto me. So I mean, I wish them well, and I know it's a very attractive option. And if they have faith and feel the speaker is a very empowered person, that they just do this and then everything is righted in their life. But
Mm.
personally, I feel that the Bhagavad Gita is telling us very clearly that it's not so simple. It's just
Mm.
not so simple. And often we have speakers taking questions from the audience, saying, why should we really take up this process, Mr. Swamiji? I have heard this. I've been in Mayapur and in local situations. Someone's just checking out the scene and they say, everything is going fine in my life and I'm not doing anything wrong. So why really should I be getting mixed up? And why do I have to become a vegetarian? And why do I have to take up the process and read the Gita and chant? Everything is going fine. So there are no problems. So I remember the speaker said, oh, you won't have long to wait. Problems coming soon. Because this is the material world. How can anybody think that everything will go fine in the
Mm.
material world? It's nice to delude ourselves. There is no easy way out. Either it is old age or else is genuine setbacks and tragedies. And I don't think the young people are having a very easy time now because,
Yeah, that's
yeah,
and today's time is pretty bad. I think for most. I think our generation is almost like there was, I think, maybe a hope in our generation that some things might change. There may be something new, some revolution or something. I don't know what, but I think our generation is like I think now people are moved past our generation. They're looking at probably the next generation that's coming after us, basically. But I
yeah,
think the because we all coming under like the millennial generation now. So
right,
all
right.
like so in our generation, not much has changed. Like people have more or less like succumbed to most of their material desire. Like whatever society has told us is important, we've all like just done it. We not
Accepted it. Yeah,
questioned it. Like there was little questioning like happening during college or whatever, but after that, like everybody is just like there's no questioning of anything about the education system, about
right.
just in general what does like what does alcohol or intoxicants or what these things do to our body, and is it necessary to, like I mean marriages should not just be about a status symbol that you show to somebody, that
Right.
you just got married and then you put up pictures on Instagram and then you tells this person and that person that I got married, and then like sometimes people won't even like it's not even about telling somebody that you got married for the it's like you just put a post on Instagram and then now everybody's going to know that
Mhm.
you got married, and marriage is seen as something like I've achieved this. It's like an achievement. So I've achieved this, you haven't like achieved this, so you're a little bit less
Right.
than me or whatever, or that kind of that materialistic competitive mindset comes in, and it's like if you're either not, if you haven't got married, if you're not earning that well, if you're not doing certain things and all stuff, the people who are will automatically assume that that they are already ahead of you in the race, in the
Right.
competitive race or whatever and stuff.
Right.
So
Yeah.
even though like it's like it doesn't really matter because you're still going to suffer, have problems in your
In the marriage.
so
Right.
in the so-called marriage, whatever they're talking about, or whether you have a child, or if you whatever job that you have, and there's gonna still be issues and problems. Like I have a friend who's like extremely into like intoxicants and all these different things and all stuff. And I was just telling him like just recently like like what's like what do you gain from like what do you gain from that? Like there's nothing that you're gaining from it. And his life also has like been very tough. Like he was when he was in school, he was very bright, but when he got out of school, then he got into all these things.
Let's see.
And and to leave them, like in school, all of us have gone through all kinds of things.
Sure,
Like
sure. Everyone experiments.
all of us have done it. Like so, it's
Yeah.
not a thing. But
Big thing.
the thing is that like it's I think some people just don't have the in that curious mindset or whatever, that just that inquisitiveness to like find out, okay, what is it, like why am I like going through something bad, like what is
Right.
the reason for why
Sure.
I'm going through something bad, like obviously, like you can't always assume that there's some, like that this person is doing something bad to you, or the
Mm,
reason for your thing is because of something else, something external. But
mhm.
most people are not like ready to look inward,
Correct.
because it's
Correct.
it's very it's because it's
Scary.
extremely scary, it's very scary
Scary.
for
Very
most
scary.
people. Even if I like, even if I sometimes talk about like this like inward looking thing, if I talk it in front of somebody else,
They
they
feel.
will they no they actually look at me like, why are you talking in that way? And
Mm,
then if they say they have some problem, then I just suggest, it could be because, have you thought about why you are, like what made you think about doing this in the first place, like, what was the feeling that it gave you, that
right.
the reason why you have to do certain things. And they'll be like, I don't know, I don't think too much about it. So then I'm like, then it's not gonna it's not gonna work. Otherwise, then whatever you try is not gonna work. You're gonna be
Sure.
stuck
Sure.
in
I
that
see.
same
Yeah. Yeah.
cycle again and again. So I feel like our generation is like a bit lost
Mm,
about what
right.
they're trying to do and all that stuff. I
Sure.
think, yeah.
Yeah. So just coming to the point that we are well within our rights to discuss another parallel popular organization and the
Mm,
methods recommended and compare and ask, does this really work? Because, and I also take this up with followers, and I have a good friend amongst one of the followers of the personality we
okay.
were mentioning. So what we concluded is that what you're looking for in spiritual life, that also differs from person to person. It takes different things to convince different people because the starting point of that spiritual journey is different. If
Mm,
someone has been very pampered and protected, as in the case of my friend, and she also agreed, one or two small tragedies, father died very early, but so much of family protection, that they are not looking for, they are not seriously troubled. But
mm,
if you come from a space where everything went upside down, it seemed a perfectly successful family and every kind of horror happened inside that, and suddenly you are left and expected to pick up the mess, it is going to take more than just telling you to connect with the Akashic intelligence to believe that everything will go well. You really want to know, why does this happen? How can I prevent it? How can I help others who are the survivors to get some direction and focus? Because obviously mundane religion didn't work. It just didn't work in our case. My brother was
mm,
extremely religious. My mother was. I wasn't that much. My father was an agnostic. But none of that helped when the actual Holocaust came by our karma or our Sade Sati or whatever.
mm,
So I meant it depends. Different people take to different spiritual organizations and paths because it takes different levels of truth to convince them. Some people
mm,
are happy just to be fobbed off, with just some slight feel good, something, do like this, everything will be fine. Like you said, he will say breathe like this and everything will be fine, and they like it like that. So we have very much a right to compare and to talk of, that the material world is way too complicated. Just today someone sent me two things, that is, so many of our Indians go to the West, educated, middle class, maybe newly married, to make a life abroad. Two cases. The child, something happened, there were some injuries on the child. The child, then they had to go to the local doctor. The doctor then alerted the health services, and they concluded that in some way the parents are abusing or beating up this 1.5-year-old child. And since then, the state, that was Germany in one case and one of the Nordic countries in another case, just took the child away. The parents are fighting for custody of their own child, and they look a fairly average, educated, having well-paid jobs, modernish kind of Indians. They don't have a clue what to do. They're up against
mm,
different court cases, and the kind of arguments that are put out, that the mother is ill-treating the child. Why? Because the mother is feeding the child with her hands, to the mouth. You see, this is the Indian system, but according to their standards, this is unhygienic and unhealthy that the child should be fed with a spoon. Then the child who is 1.5 still sleeps between the two parents, and that's apparently very unhealthy and not proper parenting. How do they get to decide this? You see, this is an Indian child. On the basis of this, a court case, 2 cases have been built up. And now I hear they've actually made a movie that's going to be released on one of these cases. I'll send
Hmm.
you the link. Yeah, I forget. I have the link here. So how can people say that the material world is not a place with complications? Because you never know which, when, and what hell. Say, yeah, Mrs. Chatterjee versus Norway. Right. One of the
I
cases
think
was in
yeah,
Norway.
heard this somewhere. I think.
Yeah. So it's these were people who probably didn't think that they were doing anything. Mrs. Chatterjee versus Norway.
Oh,
I have,
there's a film also about this.
yeah, they've made a film on it
Yeah.
to try to draw public attention how much the parents are suffering. One couple, the one in Germany, they are still
Hmm.
not getting custody of their child, and they are appealing to
Hmm.
PM Prime Minister Modi because the German and now they are saying that they have to wait till the child is a little older, and then the child will decide whether to come to these parents or go to foster care. I mean, this is all like really like lightning bolts out of the blue for no
Hmm.
particular reason. It's an Indian child born to Indians, not an adopted child. If it's an adopted child, we can understand child was adopted from Germany, they have a right. It's just a fairly average normal couple that went abroad to make a better life, and see the mess they're caught in. So how can anybody say that you just go and pray to the sun and pray 3 times and everything? The material world is full of like this Mama Maya Duratyaya, Devi Hesha Gunamai. That's very difficult to cross if you don't know what horror is waiting for us around the corner.
And
So really,
sometimes I also end up coming to this conclusion sometimes.
yeah,
Like it becomes difficult to solve material problems with spiritual solutions because
uh-huh,
sometimes it just feels like the material problem can only be solved with material solutions.
uh-huh,
You can't resolve like sometimes it's futile to even even say like okay, do this for this, like if you're suffering here, you might as well you do this, and then everything will work fine. Sometimes I felt like some people they just respond better, like the more and more material solutions you're able to provide to some person,
right,
the more like the more they're happy, because it's like practically like we're all like living in the material world. So if you tell somebody that if you just if you chant the Hare Krishna, all your problems will go away. Somebody will be like, that's true, but then I can't chant 12 hours a day. Like I can't do that for because I'll have friends to meet. I'll have family to talk to. I'll have to go and buy food. I have to do all these things. Where how will I like I can't do it there. And if I do all that, then obviously like there will be some engagement with people, with things that will result in material, again, like some kind of discomfort in some way, shape, or form. So it's almost impossible, so you can't provide that solution, even though that may be the answer to what it is. So you'll have to tell them that like go here, think about it, try to do this activity in the service of Krishna, or try to, or choose where you want to go to buy your stuff, choose what you want to buy, choose how you want to buy it from,
yeah.
or what you read, choose what you read, choose what you, all these things you can this thing. But yeah, so sometimes I just feel like that in
No,
certain situations,
actually,
yeah.
it is. It's not like this. It's the understanding has to be spiritual,
Hmm.
but the steps you take have to be material. Now, when you are
Oh.
saying that, how can I tell a person just chant and the problem will go away? It is not so simplistic. The very next verse, which we can't get into today, talks about how he says, I give the intelligence, connect with me, devote everything to me, focus on me, hear about me. And then he says, I give the intelligence by which they kind of come to me and get through the material world. So, what this practice of chanting is supposed to do is to establish a dial-up connection by which ideas are given by the Supreme Lord for material solutions. Actual ideas have to come on the material platform, but they come from a spiritual source. That's what is meant when we say there are only spiritual solutions to material problems. The ideas how to change a material problem. I'm having acidity. What should I change in my eating food habits? Which doctor should I go to? I'm running from pillar to post. I have this bad frozen shoulder. What is it that's going to work? Should I? We are completely confused. Naturally, if I just sit and chant, the frozen shoulder won't go away. My acidity
Mm.
won't come down. I have to do practical adjustments and take practical steps. But the intelligence, which is the right step to take, which actually gives results, comes from a spiritual source. And that spiritual source, if we firm up our connection with that spiritual source, it comes freely, it flows freely. You cannot sit here and chant and expect that Amazon is going to send you some product you need, right? You have to pay, you have to order online. But basically, the point is you make a connection with Amazon and then the product reaches you. Like
Yeah.
that, you make a connection with the spiritual source, and he says clearly, I give the intelligence. Yeah, Dadami Buddhi Yogam Tam. That's the next verse. I will give that particular intelligence that's required to negotiate this material world so that you find the correct material solution for the material problem. This is why often people scoff at us and call us lotus eaters. My own uncle in Pune says ISKCON or lotus eaters. They just kind of, wear these orange robes. It's true. At one level, it looks like that. They just
Mm.
chant and dance on the street and bang those big kartal bongos or whatever they are called. And they think problems will go away. It's not. That's very superficially. At one level, it is like that because so many miraculous things happen in people. But the point is, it's just that if you're going to be hungry, you need a material solution. If your problem is
Mm.
hunger, naturally you need something material like food. But for it to come, if you there is already a spiritual connection in place, ideas and solutions will come your way, because there's then another person who's not only giving you the intelligence, he is also there as a player in this whole
Mm.
his whole situation. That's the idea. That's the
Mm.
meaning of there are only spiritual solutions to material problems, because the spiritual understanding has to be there. It has to come from a spiritual platform, and then
That
naturally,
I
yeah,
guess that is what I think maybe that's what this thing
Sutta Prasad.
Chaitanya
Yeah.
Mahaprabhu talks about that Achintya Veda Beda Tattva,
Right,
where
right.
the
Yeah,
simultaneous oneness and difference. And
yeah,
he says that, like, the idea is that, like, you look at everything in, like, everything is like, you see everything, like, you see how everything is connected
right,
to the ultimate source, which is Krishna in which is Krishna in the ultimate sense. But then
right,
also you see how different everything is, like how
right.
different and how varied everything is. And you
Sure,
see that both these ideas can be together at the same time.
sure.
So
Yeah,
if you understand that concept of Achintya Beda Beda Tava, like, where everything is like, because that, I guess, like that, to get somebody on that level to understand that, okay, so if I need to solve the material problem, I have to first try to become spiritual, and then that gives me the intelligence to solve this material problem and to get rid of that issue.
right,
That
right,
connection, for that person to, like, feel like, oh, this is true and that's also true, like I have to do this and that together at the same time to get this result.
right.
That
What
is will
actually
take time.
Achintya Beda Veda Tattva means is that one and the same and also different, meaning that both the Lord and we are essentially spiritual beings.
Same, and yeah.
Okay, but they are same. But where we are different is because the Lord's powers are huge, and our
Ours
place and
is
position is like a drop in the ocean. If the ocean is the Lord, then we are very much part and parcel of Him, and we also have that same quality of salinity or saltiness, which like a drop of water in the ocean has. But the saltiness in the whole ocean is so much more than the saltiness in a drop of water. Similarly, our ability, even as spiritual parts and parcels, what we can do in a situation is so limited, so it is different from the Lord. That's the actual meaning. But yes, as you said, at one level, everything is the same, but everything is
mm,
different also, because
mm,
material is different and spiritual and material is
yeah.
completely different.
I was saying that because, like, for most people, they look at it from that platform. Like, if you tell them,
Right.
if you tell them that everything is, in one sense, like, we are, our connection to Krishna
Yeah.
is like, is like, because we are all from Krishna in one sense. But then also there is a difference in Krishna and then us, like the people
Right.
who are. But then if you explain to most people that that we are one in a sense, but also there is a difference. So
Right.
in that concept, then people will like I was telling this to my dad the other day, like last week or something. I think I've mentioned this a couple of times. So when I mentioned this, then like most people, not just my dad, now if he watches this, he'll be like, "Why you take my name or whatever?" But but I'm just saying, like I think most people, you tell them that if you tell them in that way, they'll make that connection because ultimately we are all trying to develop love for Krishna, and
Right.
that love is not. It's like I may have love for Krishna, but it's like it's again like a relationship, right? Like it's like difficult
Right.
to you can't like force somebody to like
Cannot force. It's
yeah.
voluntary. Yeah.
Yeah, so if I get into some problem, I'll be like, "Oh Krishna, tell me what am I supposed to do? I don't know what I'm supposed to do." It's like a normal relationship you have with somebody, right? Like you just like ask for help, or
Right.
you going through some difficult thing and all. That kind of thing will be difficult for somebody to just cultivate just like that. It
That's
doesn't.
true.
It won't come.
Doesn't
So
it won't come because it
yeah.
depends where have they put their faith and what is their motivation and what are they really looking for, what kind of help. Now some people may not necessarily, even when they are in trouble, it only hardens them. I
Hmm.
Because I know of someone who is a pronounced atheist. She's from a very scientific family. She's like a relative, and I heard she was in a fire accident. She's my age group. Clothes caught fire, her legs and hands caught fire. She's such terrific presence of mind that instead of running and screaming, there was nobody at home but I think a driver. She threw herself on the ground and rolled to put out the fire. Just imagine,
Oh.
person who's really burnt practically up to the waist. Then she picked herself up and yelled out and asked the driver to take her straight to a hospital and to dial her son to reach there. So it shows terrific presence of mind. There's a lady who's about 62 now, okay, and now she's out of danger. It's going to be a long haul for her. So, but that kind of person who is already very self-reliant, it's hard to say, but after such an incident where again it is her presence of mind and her toughness and her lack of fear that came to her rescue, it's more likely that she will be even more of an agnostic and atheist. It's nothing you can
Hmm.
do. One would imagine that at least now the person will realize there is a higher force that saved me, but I'm not
That
sure this
that
particular person.
That's what I think today I was listening to this latest video by like this video is recorded in I think 19th Feb of Kesha Maharaj. It's on that
Right.
Wisdom That Breathes channel. So he was talking about I think towards the end of that lecture, somebody was asking a question and he was like, I think he mentioned this like most people like they won't realize the importance of it unless some tragedy happens to them, like
Mhm.
unless there's like some difficulty somebody's facing like in their own life, then it doesn't happen. Like in my sense I can say that is true because I did go through some
Difficulties.
personal tragedy on my own, so
Yeah.
I can say that it's true for me. But that's also a little bit sad because for most people, then I don't know about you. Do you have to get to some kind of tragedy to get to
Absolutely. Our whole
yeah.
family fell apart. That's the reason
Okay,
why
okay.
I took to it. Yeah. Not just my brother's death, but too much strife, blaming each other for the death, and the whole family structure collapsed, as your
So,
father knows.
so
So
then,
it's, yeah.
yeah, so then like, but that's also like, uh, I don't know if that's good or bad that you have to get into a tragedy to,
Not, no, not,
like,
it's not
uh,
necessary. So many people
no.
in 7 chapters says there are 4 types of people who turn to me. One of them is very much those who are very much in distress.
Mm,
Another is the type who have lost all their money and are frantic. Then there is the curious and the inquisitive. But I know so many who took to this path without anything going wrong in their life. They basically are already of this bent of mind and they're curious and they feel some natural attraction to Krishna and they really take, and things keep
mm,
going nicely in their life. I
okay.
know so many devotee families like that. It's not that everyone has to go through it. It depends on so many factors, our past karma, what we're looking for. You
So,
know?
Supriya Chechi,
So
I'll have to go because that
yeah,
meeting
yeah,
is
yeah.
there.
I
Yeah.
wanted to tell you it's past 5. So we'll
So,
catch up again
yeah,
next.
yeah.
Yeah.
Thank
Okay.
you. Yeah.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Bye.